On March 11, 2011, Japan was struck by an earthquake and tsunami that cost the lives of an estimated 20,000 people and made many thousands more instant refugees. The following day, sketchy reports began to emerge of a nuclear disaster which would rival that of Chernobyl. This year, at 2:46 p.m., the Japanese Prime Minister and Emperor led the nation in a memorial service. Some Japanese, however, did not want a day of reflection or prayer. New York City, half a world away, Japanese and American protesters gathered in Union Square to bring attention to radiation and what they claim is the government's downplaying of its effects on people's health.
After 1 year, the nuclear disaster has not been solved at all. Rather, the situation is deteriorating. Many people in Fukushima are still living in very contaminated area. Huge amount of nuclear materials were released, which is 168 times of that released after Hiroshima. However, without any protection measure, without any compensation, and without any support of the evacuation, many people are still living in the contaminated area.
Instead of evacuating more people near the Fukushima power plant, the government reduced the size of the exclusion zone.
We are here today because Fukushima nuclear power plants are still leaking radiation.
The Japanese government and supporters insist that its measures are sufficient and say that harmful rumors rather than radiation are causing far more damage to Japanese businesses in the disaster zone. In June, Eileen Miyoko Smith appeared on Democracy Now! And denounced Dr. Shinichi Yamashita from the Atomic Bomb Disease Institute, an advisor to Fukushima Prefecture, for his comments. Already upset over food scandals, the nuclear industry and government's collusion, as well as the recent news that the Japanese government was well aware of a meltdown scenario by 7 p.m. on day 1, set the backdrop for these protests. Angry protesters leveled all sorts of accusations at the Japanese government.
How many people's lives will they sacrifice to cover up their criminals? Enough already, bastards!
Protesters next focused on the Indian Point nuclear power plant.
If something happened to Indian Point, we right here where we stand will be included evacuation zone.
You have the Indian Point here, and this kind of accident will happen again.
When we say we are all Fukushima, here in New York, we are at risk of a Fukushima-style disaster. Nuclear power is a disaster. It kills fish. It radiates our water. It leaks. It's an aging nuclear power plant that is ripe for an even bigger disaster.
To counter their critics' claims that nuclear power is necessary, protesters offered an array of renewable options, which, they say, can supply Japan and the United States with enough power to be free of nuclear energy. The group 311 Action New York then marched some 50 blocks to Central Park, shouting, chanting, playing music and trying to win converts. Before disbanding, they decided to bring their message to the Council General's home.
His government is disrupting our lives, and we have something to tell him, I think. Don't you think? Yeah. Of course. So let's go.
Yeah, we want to send him a message that his government needs to stop downplaying the nuclear activity in Japan.
You have to tell the world that nuclear energy is not okay.
And tell people what's going on in Fukushima and in Japan. Contamination is everywhere. That's right.
Met by security, they shouted, "Shame on you," and vowed to continue the pressure, saying they would return as long as the Japanese government, in their words, continues to downplay the nuclear disaster.